In a fiery courtroom clash, a corrupt judge tries to humiliate Attorney General Pam Bondi, but she's ready to outwit him with legal brilliance, setting the stage for a showdown that will stun the nation. The courtroom in Miami buzzed with tension, the air thick with anticipation, as spectators packed the benches. At the center of it all stood Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, her posture calm, but her eyes sharp, like a predator sizing up prey. Across from her, Judge Victor Salazar presided over the federal courtroom, his reputation as a sharp-tongued, power-hungry figure preceding him. The case before them was explosive. A group of whistleblowers accused of leaking classified government documents faced charges that could lock them away for decades. Bondi, representing the whistleblowers, had taken the case personally, believing their arrests were a politically motivated witch hunt. Salazar, however, seemed determined to make her regret stepping into his domain. Salazar leaned forward, his gavel resting lightly in his hand, a smirk curling his lips. "Ms. Bondi," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "I hope you've brought more than your usual political grandstanding today. This is a court of law, not a press conference," the gallery murmured, and a few reporters scribbled furiously. Bondi didn't flinch. She adjusted her glasses, her expression unreadable, and replied, "Your Honor, my arguments are rooted in legal precedent, not politics. I'm here to defend my client's rights, and I intend to do so." Her tone was measured, but the steel beneath it was unmistakable. The judge's smirk faded slightly, but he pressed on, clearly relishing the chance to assert dominance. "We'll see about that," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Proceed, but don't waste my time with theatrics." Bondi nodded, unfazed, and turned to the jury, her presence commanding the room. She began laying out the case. Her clients, a group of analysts who had uncovered evidence of government overreach, had been arrested under vague charges of espionage. "These individuals," she said, her voice clear and steady, "acted in the public interest, exposing truths that those in power wanted buried. Their arrests lack legal grounding, and I'll prove it." As Bondi spoke, a young law intern named Mia Torres sat in the back of the courtroom, her notebook open but her pen still. She'd heard stories of Bondi's tenacity, her rise from a tough prosecutor in Tampa to the nation's top legal officer. But seeing her in action was something else. Mia, a first-generation college student, had dreamed of a career in law but often felt intimidated by its cutthroat world. Watching Bondi, though, she felt a spark of inspiration. Yet her attention kept drifting to Salazar, whose interruptions grew sharper with every point Bondi made. "Ms. Bondi," Salazar cut in, his voice booming, "you're dancing around the issue. Your clients broke the law. Are you suggesting they're above it?" The question was a trap, designed to paint Bondi as reckless. The gallery held its breath, waiting for her to falter. But Bondi didn't miss a beat. "No, Your Honor," she said, her gaze locking onto his. "I'm suggesting the law was misapplied to silence them. The charges don't hold up under scrutiny, and I'll demonstrate why." Her calm defiance sent a ripple through the room, and even Mia leaned forward, her heart racing. Salazar's face tightened, his fingers drumming on the bench. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone with Bondi's poise. He shuffled some papers, then barked, "I'll be the judge of that. Move on." But Bondi's words had already shifted the atmosphere. The jury, initially skeptical, now seemed attentive, their eyes following her every move. She presented her first piece of evidence, a series of memos showing the whistleblowers had followed protocol before their arrests. "These documents," she said, holding them up, "prove my clients acted within their rights. The government's case is built on sand." As Bondi continued, Salazar's interruptions grew more frequent, each one laced with irritation. He questioned her citations, mocked her phrasing, and even accused her of showboating for the press. Yet Bondi remained unruffled, her responses precise and grounded in case law. Mia scribbled notes furiously now, marveling at how Bondi turned every jab into an opportunity to strengthen her argument. The intern couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a trial. It was a battle of wills, and Bondi was playing to win. By the end of the first day, the courtroom was electric. Bondi had laid a solid foundation, but Salazar wasn't done. As the session closed, he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Ms. Bondi, you've had your moment," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Tomorrow I expect substance, not stories. Don't think you can charm your way out of this." The threat hung in the air, and the gallery buzzed with whispers. Bondi simply nodded, her expression serene. But Mia caught the glint in her eyes, a promise of something bigger to come. What would Bondi unleash next? The Miami courtroom crackled with unresolved tension as day 2 began, the memory of Judge Salazar's parting shot still lingering. His words had been a gauntlet thrown at Pam Bondi's feet, and the gallery, now swollen with onlookers, waited to see how she'd respond. Bondi stood at her table, her navy suit crisp, her demeanor as composed as ever, but there was a new intensity in her movements, a quiet signal she was ready to escalate. Salazar, perched on his bench, watched her like a hawk, his expression a mix of disdain and curiosity. The air felt charged, as if the room itself knew a storm was brewing. Salazar wasted no time. "Ms. Bondi," he said, his tone sharp, "I hope you've heeded my advice. This court demands evidence, not eloquence. Proceed." The jab was meant to rattle her, to remind everyone who held the gavel. Bondi met his gaze, unflinching. "Your Honor, I assure you my evidence will speak for itself," she replied, her voice steady but laced with a subtle challenge. The gallery leaned forward, sensing the undercurrent of defiance. Mia Torres, the young intern, clutched her notebook, her pulse quickening. She'd spent the night replaying Bondi's performance, wondering how anyone could stay so calm under such pressure. Bondi launched into her case, her focus razor-sharp. She called her first witness, a former intelligence analyst named Dr. Elena Ruiz, one of the accused whistleblowers. Ruiz, a wiry woman with graying hair and a steely demeanor, took the stand, her eyes scanning the room. Bondi's questions were precise, designed to unravel the government's narrative. "Dr. Ruiz," she began, "can you confirm you followed protocol when you reported your findings?" Ruiz nodded, her voice clear. "Yes, I submitted my concerns through secure channels, as required. The response was my arrest." The revelation landed like a grenade, and murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Salazar's gavel cracked. "Order!" he barked, his eyes narrowing at Bondi. "Ms. Bondi, this is anecdotal. Where's the documentation?" His tone was accusatory, as if he'd caught her in a misstep. Bondi didn't blink. She produced a thick binder, its pages tabbed and annotated. "Right here, Your Honor," she said, sliding it toward the clerk. "These are the secure communications Dr. Ruiz sent, time-stamped and verified. The government ignored them." The jury's eyes widened as the clerk passed the binder to Salazar, who flipped through it, his jaw tightening. Mia scribbled furiously, her admiration for Bondi growing. The Attorney General wasn't just prepared, she was a step ahead. But Salazar wasn't ready to yield. He leaned forward, his voice cutting. "This proves nothing, Ms. Bondi. Your client still disclosed classified information. Are you arguing they had the right to break the law?" The question was a minefield, designed to trap her into a corner. The gallery held its breath, and even Ruiz shifted on the stand. Bondi paused, but not from hesitation. Her silence was deliberate, commanding attention. "Your Honor," she said, her voice rising just enough to fill the room, "my clients disclosed nothing. They reported internally as the law allows. The government's charges are a retaliation, not a prosecution." Her words were a direct challenge, and the jury's faces showed they were listening. Salazar's face reddened, his fingers gripping the gavel. "You're treading on thin ice," he warned, his voice low. "This court won't tolerate insinuations." But Bondi didn't back down. She turned to the jury, her posture open, her tone earnest. "The evidence shows my clients followed the law. The government's case relies on fear, not facts." Her words were a masterstroke, reframing the trial as a fight for truth. Mia felt a chill. She'd never seen someone turn a judge's hostility into an advantage so deftly. As the day wore on, Bondi called more witnesses, each testimony building her case like bricks in a fortress. She presented emails, call logs, and internal memos, each piece meticulously cross-referenced. Salazar's interruptions grew more desperate, his questions more pointed, but Bondi parried each one with calm precision. "Your Honor, the law is clear," she said after one particularly aggressive exchange. "My client's rights were violated, and I'm here to prove it." The courtroom was now firmly in her grip, the jury's skepticism giving way to intrigue. Mia, watching from the back, felt a surge of inspiration but also unease. Salazar's hostility wasn't just professional, it felt personal. She'd overheard whispers in the courthouse about his ties to powerful figures, and now she wondered if Bondi was up against more than a biased judge. As the session neared its close, Salazar made one final move. "Ms. Bondi," he said, his voice icy, "your evidence is compelling, but it's incomplete. Tomorrow I expect you to tie this together, or I'll dismiss your case entirely." The threat was a bombshell, and the gallery erupted in gasps. Bondi's expression didn't change, but her eyes burned with resolve. What would she do to turn the tide? The Miami courtroom felt like a pressure cooker. As day 3 dawned, Judge Salazar's ultimatum still echoing in the air. His threat to dismiss Pam Bondi's case had raised the stakes to a razor's edge, and the packed gallery buzzed with nervous energy. Bondi stood at her table, her face a mask of calm determination, but her hands moved with purpose, arranging documents with surgical precision. Salazar's icy warning had been a calculated move to undermine her, but the fire in her eyes suggested she was ready to meet his challenge head-on. The judge, seated high on his bench, surveyed the room with a predatory glint, clearly expecting Bondi to falter. Mia Torres, the young intern, sat in the back, her stomach churning. She'd spent the night haunted by Salazar's words and the rumors of his connections, wondering if Bondi could overcome a system stacked against her. Salazar opened the session with a pointed jab. "Ms. Bondi," he said, his voice laced with mockery, "I trust you found the missing pieces to your puzzle. This court has no patience for half-baked arguments." The gallery tensed, and a few reporters exchanged glances, sensing blood in the water. Bondi didn't rise to the bait. "Your Honor," she replied, her tone even but firm, "my case is whole, and today I'll prove it beyond doubt." Her confidence was a quiet thunderclap, and even Salazar's smirk faltered for a moment. Mia leaned forward, her pen poised, feeling the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary trial. It was a high-stakes chess match, and Bondi was playing for checkmate. Bondi called her next witness, a retired general named Thomas Carver, whose testimony promised to be a game-changer. Carver, a grizzled man with a chest full of medals, took the stand, his presence commanding respect. Bondi's questions were sharp, cutting to the heart of the whistleblower's case. "General Carver," she began, "did you oversee the program my clients exposed?" Carver nodded, his voice gravelly. "I did. Their reports of misconduct were accurate and followed protocol. Their arrests were ordered from above to silence them." The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom, and the jury's eyes widened. Mia scribbled frantically, her heart pounding. This was the kind of testimony that could shift everything. Salazar, however, was quick to pounce. "Objection!" he snapped, his gavel slamming down. "This is hearsay, Ms. Bondi. You're grasping at straws." His tone was venomous, and the gallery murmured in unease. Bondi didn't flinch. She produced a sealed envelope, its contents marked as classified. "Your Honor, this is a declassified directive signed by General Carver's superiors, corroborating his testimony. It's admissible." She handed it to the clerk, who passed it to Salazar. The judge's face darkened as he read it, his fingers tightening on the paper. For the first time he seemed rattled, and Mia caught a fleeting look of panic in his eyes. Bondi was dismantling his control piece by piece, but Salazar wasn't finished. He leaned forward, his voice low and menacing. "Ms. Bondi, you're pushing the boundaries of this court's patience. This document changes nothing. Your clients broke the law, and no amount of theatrics will save them." The accusation was a desperate swing, meant to regain the upper hand. Bondi met his gaze, her expression unyielding. "Your Honor," she said, her voice rising to carry to every corner of the room, "the law protects those who expose corruption, not those who hide it. My clients are victims of a cover-up, and this evidence proves it." Her words were a direct challenge, and the jury's faces showed they were swayed. Even Mia felt a surge of awe. Bondi wasn't just arguing a case, she was rewriting the narrative. As the day unfolded, Bondi presented more evidence. Forensic audits, encrypted communications, and expert testimony, each piece tightening the noose around the government's case. Salazar's interruptions grew, erratic, his questions laced with frustration. "You're wasting our time," he snapped at one point, but Bondi countered with a citation so airtight it left him silent. The courtroom's atmosphere had shifted decisively. Bondi's calm, relentless precision was winning over the jury, and even the reporters in the gallery were nodding in approval. Mia, watching it all, felt a mix of pride and dread. Bondi was dominating, but Salazar's hostility suggested he had one last card to play. As the session drew to a close, Salazar made his move. "Ms. Bondi," he said, his voice cold and deliberate, "your evidence is impressive, but it's not enough. Tomorrow I'll rule on a motion to dismiss unless you can prove intent behind the government's actions." The demand was a near impossible hurdle, and the gallery gasped. Bondi's expression remained steady, but her eyes gleamed with a fierce resolve. Mia's heart sank. Could even Bondi meet this challenge? What would she pull out to save her clients now? The Miami courtroom was a cauldron of anticipation as the final day began. Judge Salazar's impossible demand hanging like a guillotine over Pam Bondi's case. His call for proof of the government's intent had seemed designed to crush her, yet Bondi stood at her table, her posture radiating quiet confidence. The gallery, overflowing with spectators, hummed with whispers, all eyes on the Attorney General. Salazar, on his bench, wore a smug expression, certain he'd cornered her. Mia Torres, the young intern, sat in the back, her notebook nearly full, her nerves frayed. She'd barely slept, haunted by the thought that even Bondi might not overcome this hurdle. But the glint in Bondi's eyes suggested she had one final play. Salazar opened with a barb. "Ms. Bondi," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, "I hope you found the miracle you need. Intent is a high bar, and this court won't indulge speculation." The gallery tensed, sensing his eagerness to dismiss. Bondi met his gaze, unflinching. "Your Honor," she replied, her tone steady but charged, "I'll deliver proof that leaves no doubt." Her words were a quiet detonation, and Mia's pulse quickened. The room seemed to hold its breath as Bondi stepped forward, ready to face the judge's trap head-on. Bondi called her final witness, a former high-ranking official named Richard Lang, who'd overseen the whistleblowers' arrests. Lang, a gaunt man with a nervous tic, took the stand, his eyes darting to Salazar. Bondi's questions were relentless, each one a scalpel. "Mr. Lang," she began, "did you receive orders to arrest my clients despite their compliance with protocol?" Lang hesitated, sweat beading on his forehead. "I followed orders," he muttered, Bondi pressed harder. Whose orders? And why? Lang's voice cracked. From the top. They wanted the leak stopped, no matter the cost. The admission was a thunderbolt, and the gallery erupted in gasps. Salazar's gavel slammed down. Order! He roared, his face flushed. Ms. Bondi, this is inadmissible without corroboration. His voice betrayed a hint of desperation, and Mia caught it. Bondi, undeterred, produced a USB drive. Your Honor, this contains recorded conversations between Mr. Lang and his superiors, obtained legally via subpoena. They confirm intent to silence my clients. She handed it to the clerk, who passed it to Salazar. The judge's hands trembled. As he inserted the drive into a laptop, his expression darkening as muffled voices filled the room, detailing a plot to bury the whistleblowers. The jury's faces hardened, and Mia's heart soared. Bondi had done the impossible. Salazar tried to regain control. This proves nothing, he snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. You're twisting the facts. Bondi turned to the jury, her presence commanding. The facts are clear, she said, her voice resonant. My clients exposed corruption, and those in power retaliated. The law protects them, and justice demands their freedom. Her words were a clarion's call, and the jury nodded, captivated. Mia scribbled furiously, her admiration for Bondi now bordering on reverence. The intern saw not just a lawyer, but a force of nature. Salazar's interruptions grew feeble as Bondi delivered her closing argument, a masterclass in precision and passion. She wove together every piece of evidence, memos, testimony, recordings, into a narrative of truth versus power. This case, she concluded, is about whether the law serves justice or shields corruption. My clients deserve freedom, and the government deserves scrutiny. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Even Salazar seemed subdued, his earlier arrogance replaced by a grudging respect. As the jury deliberated, tension gripped the room. Salazar sat silently, his fingers drumming, while Bondi reviewed notes, her calm unshaken. Mia watched, realizing she was witnessing a turning point, not just for the case, but for her own aspirations. When the jury returned, the foreman stood. We find the defendants not guilty on all charges. The gallery exploded in cheers, and Salazar's gavel was drowned out. He raised his voice, strained but clear. The charges are dismissed. The court finds no legal grounds for the arrests. His admission was reluctant, but undeniable. Bondi had won. As the courtroom emptied, Salazar lingered, his eyes meeting Bondi's for a moment. He nodded, a rare gesture of acknowledgement, then left. Bondi turned to her clients, their faces alight with relief, and shook their hands. Mia approached hesitantly, her voice soft. Ms. Bondi, you were incredible. I want to be like you someday. Bondi smiled, her eyes warm. Study hard, stay true, and you will. Mia walked away, her resolve cemented, knowing she'd seen justice in action. Bondi's triumph wasn't just a victory. It was a lesson in the power of preparation and principle, one that would echo far beyond the courtroom.